officially bowl season.
Mm-hmm. It is. Happy bowl
Which, does
season.
it matter anymore? I don't know.
Well, and it's funny you say that because I think when the playoffs started, 8 years ago now, I guess they made the decision 10 years ago. Nick Saban, I don't think Nick Saban's right on everything, but he called this like a prophet, where he said the bowl season and a playoff will never be able to coexist because the more you add playoff games, the more irrelevant you make the bowl games. And um, just so people understand, this actually the playoff was a natural outgrowth of the BCS. I want to be fair here because if you remember, Amanda, the first 8 years of the BCS, one of the BCS bowls would alternate to be the national championship game, and then in 2006 they decided all 4 BCS bowl games are consolation games, and then we'll have a separate national championship game, and that started in 2006, which automatically kind of devalued those bowls to a certain degree. So they don't matter as much. I think once you started the playoff, this is why you had to expand the playoff. It was really the only option because the bowl games are now less relevant. So to make them more relevant, you kind of have to expand the playoff and make the bowl games part of it. And yeah, there will only be 6 bowl games part of the playoff in 2 years. But quite honestly, up until the 1980s, there were only 6 bowl games people cared about anyway. So it's kind of like a return to tradition. And I like watching the bowl games. I like betting on them. They're fun. You know, you love seeing the Mountain West and Conference USA 6-6 teams play it out in some bowl in the Bahamas every now and then. But yeah, this is not going to generate national coverage anymore. And so
No.
I think that's just the nature of what it is. But let's just be honest. We all thought there were too many bowl games to begin with and that most of them should be generating national coverage. So I think it's a win-win because at least more bowl games are going to matter, and these other teams can play in these meaningless bowl games, and national media doesn't have to care about it, but we can. It's more football for us to entertain ourselves with.
Yes. So I think for today's tough question, where I want to go is, how do you feel about players sitting out bowl games now that the NIL is in effect? Like, do you think that they should be able to sit out those bowl games?
Well, I mean, there's no stopping them if they choose to, but
Of course.
I think I have no problem with it I think they should if they're focusing on the NFL draft. I got no problem with it. And quite honestly, for now, I will say this again. You're right. NIL throws a factor. I think it's still their prerogative if they think they'll make more money in the bowl or not. I got no problem with them looking out for themselves. Quite honestly, if they're going to the NFL, I think if you're a program, if you're not in a meaningful bowl game, if you're not in a playoff game, and I think as a program, you'd rather that player sit out because you'd rather get the extra practice because they're going to the pros anyway. You'd rather the extra practices be with the person that might be their replacement next year to get the first team reps in December. You can see what they could do in real time in a game. So quite honestly, I think that you're doing yourself a favor, but I also think you're doing your team a favor. I think unless you need to improve your draft stock, I think there's neither side really gains from a player. Like if Jalen Hyatt's going to the pros, and again, he hasn't really made his decision yet. He's 50-50. But if he decides to go to the NFL, I don't think he does Tennessee any favors coming back to play in the bowl game. I think it's better for both sides if he goes to focus on the draft. And also Tennessee can then, implement Squirrel White and see how he does in the slot. So that's my thoughts on it.
So I completely disagree with you.
What?
I know, shocking. I think that Tennessee Junior said you're quitting on your team, period. I agree with that. I think that now I could understand before when there was you weren't making any money or quote unquote weren't making any money during like the college season or whatever, and that you wanted to save your body and not risk it on a game that didn't matter. In the climate of the NIL, you're making money now. You're now officially an employee. This is your job. You play in the bowl game because that is your job. You've signed NIL stuff. you've gotten this far with that. You should play in the bowl games. Like you should. That this is a part of your job. So with I don't agree. I never agreed with people sitting out bowl games. I understood it though. I understood, okay, this game means nothing. You can sit it out. But then in the middle of the season when you're playing you're playing Austin P or you're playing whoever, it that game probably means nothing and you're not going to lose it, but you still play it. So
there's a
I
huge
don't think
difference.
so.
Yes.
How
Okay,
so?
so you have to remember this. If it's the middle of the season, you're still playing for draft stock if you're a player. The bowl season, again, most seniors will play in the bowl because the bowl is there. You're fighting so hard for a spot in the NFL draft. It's very few players that have a draft spot locked up, honestly. And so I would also break with the idea that they're employees. I would say I would more call them independent contractors because it's not like they're being like
Same. If you're an independent contractor and you decide one day you're not going to come to work because it's in your best interest, you're not going to finish this project that you started. So it's in your best interest because you got a better deal. You're not going to be an independent contractor for long.
My question is who's harmed by the players doing this? Like I said, I think the program would prefer it because they can work with the backups that they know they're going to have to work for next year if it's a meaningless bowl game, not if it's a college football playoff game.
But you're telling me Alabama's playing in the Sugar Bowl against Kansas State. They would rather play without Bryce Young and Will Anderson?
Yes,
I do.
I absolutely do. Nick Saban needs to worry about, first of all, Nick Saban, if anybody needs to give his backup quarterback some first team reps, it's Alabama. And I'm going to give everybody a little bit of history lesson on here. Dave and I have talked about this in the past. The reason Tennessee football won the 1998 national championship, and nobody knows this, actually a lot of people know this, but it's not talked about a lot. After the 97 SEC championship that Peyton Manning won, Peyton Manning hurt his knee. Peyton Manning, honestly, he wanted to go for the national championship game. They started him. It's his final game. You start your senior quarterback, who's your greatest player ever, obviously, for a national title game. But he was not healthy, and so he didn't practice with the team the whole month of December. Team Martin took all the first team reps. And it's well documented that taking those reps in December for a national championship game was probably the biggest factor in making sure Team Martin was ready to go at the start of the 98 season. And without those reps, they probably don't win those first two games at Syracuse in Florida, where Martin played like he wasn't great in those games, but he was a veteran and calm in the final minutes. And I think those extra reps in December are huge for backups. So yeah, Will Anderson and Bryce Young. So I bring that to Bryce Young. Let's be honest. You probably don't believe in Jalen Milroe. I don't believe in Jalen Milroe either.
God, no.
But it may be irrelevant because Nick Saban's quarterback may not even be on the roster for next year right now. But if you're going to have a battle in the spring, you at least would like to get a head start on it right now. And that's where Jalen Milroe comes into play, just to see what he can do.
I think with Alabama, I think Ty Simpson's going to get the nod over Jalen Milroe because we've seen Jalen Milroe and it is not, it's not pretty. It's not,
I agree.
I mean, I feel like Jalen Milroe and Joe Milton are similar creatures. I would compare them a lot. I think they both have strong arms. I think that they tend to overthrow people. I think that they don't make the best decisions in games. I feel that. But I think if you are any team, you want Will Anderson and you want Bryce Young to play because Alabama has plenty of time. You have plenty of time to work those quarterbacks out. You've tons of time. You have at least 8 months to figure out who you got. And if you're playing against a defense, you want it to be a really good defense. So your practice is going to be, I think, more beneficial to you as a quarterback than another team because your defense is a lot better than Kansas State's. But I feel like you want to go out and win the bowl game. I think everybody does. I mean, I understand it's not the playoffs, and for a lot of Alabama fans, that's disappointing and yada, yada, yada. But you want your best players to play in those games because you want to dominate them if you can. I don't think you just want to put a newbie in there and have, Kansas State being, we beat Bama for the next 25 years.
Okay, but that doesn't. Let's think about it this way, because this also depends on the program itself. Bama's not hurt by it if they lose. Nick Saban's at Alabama. Nick Saban's going to get the number one recruiting classes every year, no matter what. Now, K-State, it may mean something to them, because if they can sell we beat Bama, they can go back home. And actually, to be fair, this may be crucial to Tennessee too. And Dave and I talked about this. This is why the Tennessee-Clemson game is actually a bigger game than usual. But to Alabama's point, Alabama, if they lose a bowl game, that's not going to hurt them in recruiting at all. But if K-State wins that bowl game, they all of a sudden can be like, look at what we're doing as a program at Kansas State right now. That's where
Alabama loses to Kansas State. That is going to hurt them in recruiting.
It's not going to hurt them in recruiting.
Yes, it is.
It's not. Nick Saban has way too much credibility. It's not going to hurt them in recruiting.
Nick Saban's getting up there.
He is getting up there, but he's still one. Alabama could skip a recruiting class and still have enough talent for a while. Alabama's problem is not recruiting right now. It's that they got an offensive coordinator that Nick Saban is staying way too loyal to.
Oh God, I know.
Yeah.
Apparently does not have any more contract. It's over now.
Yeah, you shouldn't
contract
renew it.
is up.
Yes.
Yes, please do not renew that, for the love of God. For everybody who likes college football and watching college football, you let Bryce Young go to waste.
Yes.
You literally let a filet mignon sit in your refrigerator and go to waste.
That is so true. You're right. Basically did nothing, and Bryce Young was trying to, he was bailing out the offense and the offensive coordinator throughout 2 seasons. And yeah, it was horrible to watch. It's embarrassing that he didn't get a national championship, and it's not his fault at all.
He did, but as a backup.
Oh yeah, that's right. As Mac Jones' backup. Yeah. As a starter, he didn't get one.
No, he did not, which is embarrassing.
Yeah.
For the amount of talent that you have, that is absolutely embarrassing.
It is.
There's a whole thing.
But I will grant you with Tennessee and Clemson, okay, maybe the players do owe it to the program, because Tennessee and Clemson, both teams need to win this game. And I don't know if people understand how much Clemson's rise has been because of Tennessee's fall. And I don't think the town's big enough for the two of them. I don't think the two programs can coexist as powerhouses because they compete for too many similar recruits. And this bowl game is huge because right now there's a narrative out there. See, this narrative doesn't exist with Alabama. This is why they're going to be fine in recruiting. With Clemson, it does. That they were a flash in the pan on a 6-year run and that they're now on a downward trend to a certain degree. That narrative's out there. The narrative's also out there that Tennessee's on the rise. Recruits are going to be paying attention to that. This bowl game could really solidify that narrative, or it could turn the narrative on its head and Clemson could be like, we're still Clemson. We're still the big boys on the block, and Tennessee, you're not here yet. So that's where a bowl game like this is a huge, huge deal. So in that, I might grant you with this, maybe with Tennessee, maybe the players should play, maybe Hyatt even should play. But with Alabama, no, it's Alabama. You guys are going to be fine. Alabama's going to be fine.
You can't rest on your laurels. You can't just say, well, it's Alabama. They're going to be fine. Because in 2 years, I mean, look at Clemson. It's Clemson 2 years ago. They're going to be fine. And now look at where they are.
A couple of things on that. Alabama, one, Nick Saban is a better overall coach than Dabo Swinney. Swinney had a run when the ACC was horrible. I mean, horrendous. But Swinney is not an X's and O's coach. Nick Saban, for whatever you want to say on defense, he's an X's and O's guy. That's Nick Saban's defense. It doesn't matter who the defensive coordinator is. He analytically handles everything on that side. He's Josh Heupel on offense at Tennessee. Now, so I think with Nick Saban, you always know you'll be okay. I also think that I don't consider it resting on laurels as much as it's Nick Saban saying, we got to figure out what we got behind Bryce Young and Will Anderson. We got to figure this out.
You should already know that because Bryce Young was out for a game and a half, so you should know what you have behind Bryce Young. And I know it's a game and a half, but still decisions were made, a lot quicker than a game and a half for a lot of quarterbacks. So you should know who you have. And you see, if Jalen Milroe is your backup, sorry, you don't have a lot. You need
Well,
to
then maybe
move
they
on.
can. Maybe that gives you December to give Ty Simpson the first team reps.
I mean, yes, but I wouldn't start him in a bowl game against a decent team.
That'd be the best time to start a new quarterback. Just see what happens.
We saw that. We saw Tennessee do that to that poor kid. Is it Nathan Peterman? I can't remember.
When they
who
started
it
him
was.
against Florida in 2013.
Either him or it was somebody that they started against Alabama. It was somebody they started
Yeah, it was
against
Nathan Peterman against Alabama. No, you're right. It was Peterman 2 years in a row.
Yeah, and it was just like he hadn't played a snap, and they stuck him in there, and I was like, "Dear God!" Like
Butch Jones would always make the quarterback change before it was confirmed. Before when it wasn't even clear, the starting quarterback maybe had not done enough to win, but didn't do enough to lose the job. But he would always make the quarterback change right before playing like the best defense of the year. And I think it was to save himself and set up his quarterback to fail. He did the same with Jared Garantano. He benched Quentin Dormady after the 41-0 loss to Georgia. Starts Jared Garantano against South Carolina. The 1 year South Carolina is good under Will Muschamp. And whatever else you think of Will Muschamp, he's a defensive genius.
Oh, I know. I mean, just angry as all get out. But, I mean, he looks like it. He's like the second coming of Chucky.
I thought John Gruden was that.
No, John Gruden's the first coming of Chucky. He's the real life Chucky.
Okay,
but Will Muschamp is the second one. It's like Chucky's little brother.